Okay, now we got to talk about the elephant. You know the phrase, talk about the elephant in the room, the thing that nobody wants to talk about. Our elephant is the military and war-making companies, sometimes called the military-industrial complex. For short, I'll talk about it after the Washington building that's at its head, the Pentagon. The Pentagon is the world's biggest user of fossil fuels and the world's biggest producer of greenhouse gases. And it doesn't have to obey any rules on the garbage it throws into the air. You know, when they were first creating the first treaty on global warming, the Kyoto Treaty, the US government got a clause in the agreement saying that whatever limits were agreed to, they would not apply to the military. And that's been in all agreements since. So the big powers have solemnly agreed not to talk about the biggest polluter. That has to be reversed. Do you agree? One person agreed. Do you agree? The Pentagon needs immense amounts of raw materials, especially oil. For decades, we've been involved in oil wars. They don't call it that. You know, they say it's humanitarian. We're there to help these people, that people. Come on, they are oil wars. Look at Iraq. The corporate media makes us angry about the atrocities there and thugs like Saddam and ISIS. But do you think if Iraq did not have $5 to $10 trillion of oil in the ground, we'd have been there at war for decades? Not a chance. And even if all the tanks ran on windmills and the jets were powered by solar panels, the climate movement would still have to be an anti-war movement if it had any sense. Why? Because of money. You heard the speakers, we have to abandon fossil fuel. We have to go to solar and wind. And we have to do it immediately. We have to go to a new kind of power grid. And we've only got decades to make the change. This is going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost trillions. But we don't have that money if we keep throwing it away on war. The Iraq war cost the U.S. $3 to $5 trillion. And as you know, it's not done. It's heating up again. That is madness. It is folly. We need the money to fight climate catastrophe. The human race can no longer afford the luxury of war. You are allowed to applaud. Now, it's all well and good to be against war in general. It takes no real guts to say you're against war. You have to be against war in specific. The patriotic wars, the wars where you're going to be defending your noble allies. The wars where the politicians who start them hide behind the soldiers and say, support the troops. Those are the difficult wars to come out and say you're against. Let's just take a few more sentences about Iraq. We've been involved with Iraq. We've been interfering and meddling in Iraq for 60 years, wars and sanctions, and it's only made things worse. But the U.S. politicians want to go in again. It is madness. The U.S. politicians and the Pentagon are the last people who would make things right. You do not send in the arsonist to put out the fire. We need to get out of the war business. We need to use our money and skills to fight Ebola. I was listening to Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! There's 5,000 dead in Africa from Ebola, 12,000 people with this incredible disease, no health facilities. There's a world emergency to fight a bunch of ISIS idiots. But Ebola on the back burner. They had a Pulitzer Prize winning author on Democracy Now! This morning. She said by Christmas we could have 250,000 people with Ebola. And you think it's going to stay in Africa forever? You think there's one guy's not going to get on a plane and come to Europe or come to the United States? That's an emergency. That's where we should be spending unlimited amounts of money. But not only that, we need to use our money to tear down Bridgeport's dirty energy plants, give every laid-off worker a guaranteed job there, and use what could be prime South End real estate for housing, business, parks, and schools. And I'll repeat what I said before. Humankind can no longer afford the luxury of war. Thank you.